from the Oasis Project, formerly Life Extension, LE. Yes, I'm your tech support. And we first met 150 years ago. So you must exercise control over yourself, that it all depended on your mind. All of this. Everything is your creation. And now we're heading towards your true moment of choice.
And the fact that scientists, they got to see what we see, Jason, but they're not talking about this stuff.
Well, you know, it's gotten to the point, it's like NASA in 1969. From 1962 to 69, NASA working on the Apollo missions to send men to the moon. This was an intelligence op. But being an intelligence op, the way for it to be successful is for 98% of all of those involved to actually believe they're actually doing what they claim to be doing. All the mathematicians, all the engineers, all the structural engineers, from the welders in construction, and then to the mathematicians, everybody on board really believes this is going down. It's only all the way at the top of the NASA pyramid where the top 2% actually know no men went into that rocket. That rocket was sent up and it fell into the Atlantic, and the men never left the base.
When did the lucid dream begin? That was the moment that you chose for the splice. The end of your real life and the beginning of Ellie's lucid dream. Splice of many, many years which passed when it froze in a dream.
Into the Atlantic, and the men never left the base. They were there hidden until it was time to reveal them, and a capsule was planted out there for them to get picked up. They were in it when the splashdown never happened. They were taken out there for another ship to come in, and the ship that went and got them, and all the Navy that was on board for that ship that went and got that floating capsule that had floated down from the moon, and all that shit, they're not in on it. They're getting hoodwinked as well. So this is the type of shit that that whole intelligence op was fantastic. But now, in 2023, when we look back and the intelligent trier of fact can see the footage, you can see the manifest of the things that they admitted they took to the moon and what they didn't take to the moon. We can see the state of technology that existed at that time. We can see all the hoax reports as published in books like Dark Moon, which show the original NASA photographs showing Dr. Pepper bottles right there on the moon. What's the Dr. Pepper bottle doing on the moon? So we see all this now in retrospect, but it doesn't matter. The hoax worked. They fooled an entire generation. And ever since 1969, NASA has made billions of money a year from the global taxpayer. Just all this money, it's nothing but a tax. None of that ever happened.
They say, why would they fake it? They must don't know the kind of money involved into this stuff, and it only takes just a few crumbs to fake this stuff. I'm gonna bring up a man that when it comes to the moon missions, I interviewed him. His name is Bart Sibrel. Bart Sibrel, you ever heard of him?
No, I've never heard the name.
He's the guy that Buzz Aldrin punched in the face.
Oh wow, Buzz recanted. Didn't he admit that he didn't go to the moon?
Black, if ever thought of saying, "You misrepresented my way from me. You're a coward and a liar and a thief."
He did say that we didn't go to the moon, but he tried to like it was joking. I think, but he wasn't joking. It's weighing on him because remember when they interviewed those guys right after they came back, how
they look pissed. They look mad. Yeah, people who had been to the moon and come back would be jubilant that they got back. They would be so incredibly grateful that they had returned to Earth intact and nothing went wrong. You didn't get that from none of them. They looked pissed, like they had been training for 7 years, thinking they were really going to the moon. And then when the rocket got pulled up and they got detained, and then high-level security officials jammed them up and says, "This is the business. This is what you're going to admit that you do."
I want to know, but I think I know, because we didn't go there. And that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen.
We've seen the stars through the dark part of the moon. We're not supposed to see that. But when we draw close-ups of the moon on telescopes, it really looks like it's underwater. And you can see things swimming on the surface of the moon under high magnification. It just looks really odd. And then, just like underwater, some of the domes on the moon, the craters on the moon, they're not craters at all. Even in the 1950s and 60s, it was noted by Russian astronomers that they were watching but craters on the moon open up like the iris of an eye, and glowing objects would go in and out of those apertures. So yeah, there's nothing we see in the sky is what we're told it is.
This guy here, his name was Professor Robert Foster, and he's in 1965. He did a public interview, stating that the moon was not plasma. That the moon was not solid. This was before we went to the moon. Him and a lot of more scientists was telling the world that, hey, it's impossible to land on the moon. The moon isn't even physical. The concept of the moon being holographic, we can prove it in many ways, that we can see the blue sky through the moon during the day, and we can see the black sky through the moon at night. If you just look up images of it, right, or pay attention, you can see the blue sky through the moon at day, the black sky through it at night. That right there alone shows us this can't be a physical object. Stars seen through the moon, right? There's a video on YouTube now of this video is very old too. And the guy is showing you stars seen through the moon, his own research, his own telescope zooming in, you can see stars through the moon. So this is stuff people definitely need to research. We're definitely in a holographic, what you call.
From the moment you woke up, nothing was real in a traditional sense. Your lucid dream is monitored by life extension, and a panel of experts will follow your every thought, even at this moment. Forgive me, I'm blowing your mind.
See, a lot of us think that these astronauts were in on it from the get-go. Now, what you said was that they briefed them and told them after the fact, listen, this is what it's gonna be, and that's what is how you're explaining why their faces looking so disappointed. Because if they was in on it already, you would just fake like you're excited, like, hey, yeah, we did it, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of, you got me thinking now.
If they would have told the astronauts from the very beginning that it was all a sham, they would not have done the training the way that they did, because they filmed the training. They made training and education tapes for astronauts. Every bit of this was to hoodwink not only the public, but also NASA employees. They had to. That's how successful intelligence op goes down. You got to convince everybody. So the astronauts being excited about actually going to the moon was part of the op.
Because they did have, it's crazy, you can't fake that kind of excitement. They want you to have real, but the thing is, it's like, I wonder how that must have been though. Like, you got me thinking about it. It ain't 100%, but that makes sense. The other theory would be like, well, they knew they was lying.
You just put their into the record an argument and put your hand on the Bible. Swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Cyber, knowing you, that's probably a thick Bible.
Well, you're talking at the wrong time. Why are they talking We're passengers. We're guys going on a flight. I don't get people, but you're going to be on the deck. Get the hell out of the plane. Well, I hate yourself and get the fuck out. Why did you put me and say it's bullshit? For the shadows that are on
The holographic moon in the 60s, Mr. Foster. Nope, I don't know. No one never know whatever happened to him, Jason. And here go the video of that lunar wave that I wanted them to see, man. This is crazy, this lunar wave. So when we see like these lunar waves and we hear like flood stories and all that, we think water, but could it be like a flood? They say that we're gonna have a solar flare here that's gonna end our current way of living, some sort of solar storm and all that. It can be both. It can be where, because of we having these magnetic phenomena on the earth, dams are destroyed, rivers are rerouted, so now you got floods on all levels. But there's definitely a flood of invisible like magnetic energy that I think is synonymous with these resets too. What you think, along with the water and the liquid, but also something magnetic happening like on an electromagnetic scale?
Yeah, it almost looks like it's underwater or beyond water.
Yeah, it does.
It's so crazy.
It's crazy because if we were to get in a plane or anything and just try to go to the moon, we will see it, but we'll never get to it. It's almost like an overlay. Like when we using OBS and we put a layer in front of us, you can't really, you know what I'm saying? That's the only way I can explain it.
NASA has no imagination. They could come up with some other deal. The very fact that we had 4 space shuttles, which had superior technology, and not one space shuttle was ever designed to have like it could have. If the space shuttles were real and voyaging to the moon was real, then why didn't the space shuttles since allegedly they were taking things up into space and depositing them in orbit? After a few trips, they could have enough booster rockets up there to make it to the moon, put together an assembly, and then shoot a shuttle all the way to the moon, and then use the shuttle to explore the moon. And the shuttle could have all kinds of stuff where they could create a base on the moon, put rovers out there. None of that. Much superior technology. Not one of the 4 shuttles ever went to the moon. Then NASA started destroying their own shuttles. They needed to because the moon was coming up in the debates. People wanted to see a return to the moon. So they destroyed 2 shuttles. Don't think those were accidents. They're not accidents at all. But both 2 of them, and then they decommissioned the other 2. But yeah, I mean, you've heard the stupid ass comments that people have made that actually, who is it? Neil deGrasse Tyson? We lost the technology. It's come on, man, you don't lose anything.
You lost? Oh my God. Yeah.
Since 1969, we have perfected the ability to make all technologies micro. And anytime we don't know how to do that, all we got to do is send something to Japan. And in about 90 days, they're going to figure out how to make it smaller, faster, and better.
Buy a better life under these beautiful Monet-like skies. A better life than you sculpted your lucid dream out of the iconography of your youth.
What happened in my real life?
Do you really want to know?
And anytime we don't know how to do that, all we got to do is send something to Japan. And in about 90 days, they're going to figure out how to make it smaller, faster, and better.
How do you lose some technology this is so important? And then where the director of NASA said the reason we can't go back to the moon is because we don't have the technology that can penetrate the Van Allen belts. Now, if they don't got that in the 2000s, how did they have it in the 60s or whatever?
You know why the Russians never spent billions when there's a huge Cold War going on between the United States and Russia. So the Russians had done everything first. They did everything first that was possible. They put Yuri Gagarin, they put a man in halo orbit. They call it space, but it's really halo, high altitude, low orbit. So they put Yuri Gagarin up there. They put the first satellite Sputnik in orbit. They get the first machine all the way up there before it actually hits the dome. They done did all this. They sent monkeys, dogs, and mice all the way as far as they could, and they all got fried. They died. So the Russians knew the Apollo program was absolute bullshit. They knew NASA was full of shit. They're not sending no men to the moon. Not only did they publish this in the 1950s, 57, 58, 59, that was impossible to travel to the moon, scientists in Russia were already publishing scientific papers in the 1950s and early 60s saying that the moon wasn't even a physical object. Yeah, all this was kept from the West. The Western media didn't publish any of this, but the Russian scientists did. Now, American science colleagues, all that was censored, every bit of it. Russia was made into an enemy, therefore they are to be ignored. And every scientific publication coming out in Russia was to be regarded as propaganda and misinformation. This is how NASA covered up all this BS, because there was no way they could send men past the radon, whatever it's called, radon belts, radiation, Van Allen belts, whatever it is, no living organism can pass through it. So, it's all.
Do you really want to know? I found you on the internet. I signed a contract with you, and then somebody died.
Yeah, man, the Russians knew this is why they didn't spend billions of dollars making rockets to go to the moon. Because, believe me, if it was possible, they were not going to allow the United States to have real estate on the moon. They were going to go and get theirs too. They weren't going to allow that. Just like the Russians weren't going to allow the United States to have real estate in Antarctica. Hell no, Russia went down there and planted their flags too. North Pole, Russia planted their flags too. If there's a domain that you can plant your flag on so that you can claim real estate, I promise you, Russia's going to do it. They're going to get theirs. So when it comes to the moon, they didn't do it because it can't be done.
Right, and the UN consolidated all these world powers. And when you say that it can't be done because these things are holographic,
Gave yourself to us. You're now in a suspended state. Consequences, David. It's the little things. The little things. There's nothing bigger.
Hi, this is Juan Luis Guerra. Check out my new song, Mambo.
I want to live a real life. I want to dream.